Why do you think people are going to enjoy today's episode?
Today's episode is all about karma. Karma will track you down, and it always comes back around.
Welcome to Socialite Crime Club.
Recounting misdeeds. Misdeeds I made like him.
Go back to February of 2005 for this episode.
It's a long time ago.
It is.
What, 18 years now?
18 years. God, that makes me feel old.
You are.
That is so
getting
crazy.
older.
You know, there's a baby involved in this case, and as we were discussing it, I was running the math in my head, and I realized that baby's 18 years old.
Oh my gosh.
That is insane.
Well, that person is 18 years old.
Well, the baby then is 18.
Right.
We're going to go to a suburb of Phoenix, Arizona. Out east of Phoenix is a town called Gilbert, Arizona. It's kind of a high-end bedroom community, upper class, I would say middle to upper class.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about an individual by the name of Miko Wady.
Okay.
Now, Miko Wady was a aspiring artist, but more importantly, he was a producer, like a concert promoter producer. So he would actually promote and produce concerts for really big names. This is where I learned it's not 50 cents, it's 50.
50 cent.
50. When I first talked to Miko, he explained that one of his clients was 50 cents. And I was like, oh, you work for 50 Cent? And he's like, no, it's 50.
I have a song by 50 Cent on one of my playlists. It's In the Club. I actually like that song.
Which playlist is that?
My Inner Gangsta playlist.
So those of you who are curious who else Miko may have produced, G Unit. I'm not familiar with G Unit. Are you?
No, I'm not.
But there's some other names that are actually very recognizable. Tim McGraw,
Yes, I know Tim
Faith
McGraw.
Hill,
Oh.
Mariah Carey,
He's promoted a handful of very high-profile artists.
my boy, Keith Urban.
Oh, if any of you don't know this, site
Well, we go
fanboys over
back.
Keith
Like
Urban.
we're actually good friends.
We actually have some really fun pictures of
Yeah, we've
you and
hung out
Keith
with
Urban
Keith.
at concerts.
We've hung out with Keith a couple times. Keith's a good guy. Foo Fighters. Love the Foo Fighters.
Oh, they're
the Foo.
great. We saw them in Vegas.
Dave Matthews.
Dave Matthews.
I've never been a big Dave Matthews fan.
This is quite a genre that he promotes. Interesting.
Yeah, very, very interesting. He's doing really well. He's young. He's in his mid to late 20s around this time period, and he's raking in the cash. And Miko loves to flash the cash. So he's got a Lamborghini, he's got a Ferrari, he just bought a brand new Excursion, he's got all these cars. He goes through cars like people go through underwear. Every day, it's another car.
Is he leasing these cars? Where does he put them all?
It's a great question. I don't know. In a garage somewhere. Loves his toys, jet skis, boats, four-wheelers, loves it all, and jewelry. He is known to walk around town with a $100,000 watch on and then switch them out every other day.
He loves to flaunt anything that he can purchase.
He loves to flash the cash. He would hang out at a lot of local hip-hop joints. And if you're not familiar with this, there's an entire scene, kind of like people hanging out at the barbershop. There's these hip-hop shops.
There's something like that across from SoFi Stadium, isn't it?
Snoop Dogg.
Snoop Dogg owns this entire marketplace across from SoFi Stadium.
Yeah, he has this little plaza, and he's got like a hip-hop shop where he sells clothing. And there's some other stores. And yeah, it's a hangout. It's a place to go and hang out, these hip-hop shops.
Okay.
So Miko hangs out at these hip-hop shops, kind of keeping his thumb on the pulse, if you will, of local artists. And I've actually found quite a few articles from local newspapers where they describe him trying to bring up these young artists and trying to get them to sign with bigger record
Just take them
labels.
under his wing.
Yeah, there's one in particular where he was trying to broker a deal with Def Jam Records, which is a pretty well-known record label. So Miko is connected. He's up and moving. He could potentially be the next Dr. Dre. He's producing people left and right, allegedly. I found this really cool video, but apparently Unique Whips no longer airs in the United States.
What is Unique Whips?
It was a show in the mid-2000s about people who take their cars to this shop in California and they completely rebuild them.
Okay.
Create these really nice custom cars.
Okay.
And I found an episode where they're promoting, this episode is about producer Miko Wady's 2005 Dodge Magnum station wagon. I found a couple
this is the
pictures.
station wagon.
This is it.
That is hideous.
And I remember seeing this car around town.
I have seen this car driving around Gilbert.
I found this really cool video too. It's cheesy as it goes around, and we'll play it, but this shows all the work. I think this was probably the biggest waste of money Miko
I'm
ever
assuming
did.
those doors didn't pop up like that in the original manufacturer build.
I think it's safe to say that's not factory.
Why?
But again, it just lends to some of the credibility. He's paying a lot of money to have these modifications done to a car. He's got mad cash. This week's case doesn't have a 911 call.
Oh.
Because we have some good old-fashioned police work this week.
Oh, this is fun.
Yes,
Good.
so we have a patrol officer who is doing a good job doing exactly what he's supposed to do. He's driving through a neighborhood late at night. It's about 3 o'clock in the morning. He's got his windows down. He's going slow. He's just listening and looking. And he hears what he believes is glass shattering, but not maybe just a little window, enormous glass shattering, a big plate glass window breaking. So he's trying to isolate where he thinks he just heard that and drive to the location. And he's driving down a street and he gets almost to the stop sign and he hears 3 honks, very distinct, perfectly timed honk, 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 which he's thinking now, wait a second. So he turns around. As he turns around, he's passed by another car. And this is a big Ford Excursion. Do you know, like a Suburban?
Yes. Uh-huh.
But Ford's version of this, brand new, great big Ford Excursion, is pulling a flatbed trailer that has, I think it was either 4, maybe 6 four-wheelers tied down to it.
Okay.
But he keeps going, and right after that car passes him, he sees a male running down the street in his underwear.
Okay.
His hands are zip-tied behind his back, and he's bleeding from the head.
Oh.
It's Miko Wady.
Okay.
So he jumps out of his car, and Miko is yelling, "That's my car. That's them. Go get my car." And of course, the officer's like, "Hang on. What's wrong with you? Why are you naked running down the street zip tied before I go chase this car down?"
Right.
Miko very quickly explains they are the victims of a home invasion. And this crew of at least 4 people came into his house with rifles and guns, took him and his wife somewhat hostage, tied them up, and they stole his car, and that's what just passed the officer. So the officer's going to relay this information on the radio. Another officer in the area actually sees this car exiting the neighborhood.
Okay.
As he's catching up to the car, whoever's driving it isn't going to slow down to see what's going on, realizes a cop car's behind him, and immediately just takes off.
It seems a lot of these things happen in the singing world, the artist world.
I would say specifically with maybe hip-hop rap artists.
Yeah, because I don't know that this is a Dave Matthews type of thing to do.
Keith Urban probably doesn't deal with this very often, you're saying?
Yeah, I don't see Keith Urban
you might,
dealing with something like this, or his producers for that matter.
You might be correct. The immediate pursuit, right? So they are going northbound on a road called Val Vista Road. Mm-hmm. Speeds of about 90, 95.
Wait, from where? They're going northbound on Val Vista?
Williamsfield. This starts at Val Vista and Williamsfield.
So they're pretty far south in Gilbert. And at that time, there weren't many freeways, so they had quite a ways north to go.
Oh, yeah.
Before they could even get to a
They
freeway.
had to get maybe 6 or 7 miles to get to the freeway.
Okay.
But about 1.5 miles from where this pursuit starts, there's a set of railroad tracks. And if anybody's ever driven over the railroad tracks at Val Vista and Warner, the road comes up and then goes back down. You know, it's by that school.
At Val Vista and Warner?
Yeah.
The shithead school?
The shithead school. Where
Yeah.
all the kids who get thrown out of high school have to go.
Yeah. They can't make it anywhere else for some reason.
So this truck pulling a trailer with all these four-wheelers strapped down goes over those railroad tracks at 90 miles an hour. Almost wrecks. The officer's calling it out. It's a complete shit show. They only make it about another 3/4 of a mile, half a mile, and they try to turn onto a side road, lose control, run into a ditch, crash the excursion. 2 suspects jump out of the excursion, take off running.
Okay.
One of the good things about Gilbert, Arizona late at night is there's not a lot going on. So there are plenty of officers who have nothing better to do, and they're going to lock down a pretty good perimeter in this area.
They're not making traffic stops anymore?
Yeah, they're not going to. You're safe to drive for once in your life through Gilbert, Arizona. Those of you not familiar, do not speed and do not drive intoxicated through Gilbert, Arizona. You will get stopped. They take that very seriously.
Right.
So they're going to lock down this perimeter and start searching for these two suspects. They're going to find one of them about an hour later. One of our canines actually finds him hiding in somebody's car. So somebody had left their car unlocked, and he crawled in the car and was laying on the floorboard.
Okay.
So we arrest one suspect. We do not catch the other suspect.
Oh.
At the same time, we are now doing an investigation back at Miko's house, and he describes what happens, and it is pretty violent. He and his wife have just had their first baby.
Oh, congratulations.
4 days old at this point, little girl. And they're upstairs sleeping. The baby's in a bassinet next to the bed. They wake up to this glass breaking, and somebody threw a river rock, like a big river rock, through their sliding glass door in the backyard. As soon as they hear the glass, Miko is explaining within seconds they were in his bedroom. Like, they knew exactly where to go, which always kind of confused him a little bit of how fast they went from the glass to the master bedroom, which is upstairs.
Sure.
They're armed. They immediately pull Miko out of the bed.
Did he mention if he's ever brought clients to his home?
Not that he thought these people were involved with. So he thinks they know him, but not directly.
Okay.
Like, he doesn't think that they have any
He's
direct
run across them
involvement.
somewhere. They've crossed paths.
Right. When they're pulling him out of his bed, they also pistol whip him with one of the guns. So that's where he gets cut and he starts bleeding. They put him down on the ground, immediately zip tie his wrist. Two other suspects start in on his wife, who's also asleep in the bed. They pull the covers back. They immediately start talking about how they're going to rape her. And it's pretty violent conversation that happens during this time period. And she's convinced she's about to get raped.
Oh, dear.
But because she had just given birth, when they go to pull her panties down, she's still bleeding.
And she probably still has the hospital gauze
she's
type
got like the
panties
grandma
on.
style panties on.
Right.
And when they pull them down, she's still bleeding and they get grossed out. So instead, they just start making fun of her for bleeding instead. But in all reality, that probably saved her from being raped that night.
Okay.
At this point, they're asking Miko where the cash is. They want to know where the cash is. They're convinced he's got stacks of cash in the house, which he doesn't. They take the baby out of the bassinet, put it on the floor next to Miko with the gun into the baby's head, threatening to shoot the baby if he doesn't give them this information. He does have a safe, and they're demanding he opens the safe. Eventually opens the safe, but there's really nothing in there. I think there's some watches, some jewelry. There isn't any cash.
Okay.
So now they have it in their head that the cash must be at his office, which is in Mesa, maybe 10 miles away. So they start basically beating him up, telling him, we're going to go to the office, give us the combination. We want the combination to the safe in the office now. And he's telling them, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have cash I keep my cash in the bank like everybody else in the world.
Right.
So it seems very disorganized. And all of this chaos is happening. The suspects hear 3 horn honks, which apparently is the signal for cops.
Okay.
So our officer,
So they have a lookout.
Right, and our officer who's being really heads up that night when the cop car drives by, once it passed and kind of went down the street a little bit, he honks 3 times to let him know, hey, the cops are here.
And did this officer hear the honks?
He did. That's why he turned around and actually was coming back to the house. So at that point, they run out of the house. They're just grabbing whatever nonsense they could find. They took a couple TVs, some jewelry, just odds and ends stuff that really didn't make sense. Just kind of a
TVs.
Yeah, who steals TVs?
Well, anymore. I mean, there are people who steal TVs, but they're not that expensive.
This is a pretty violent encounter, though, for TV.
It is a violent encounter for TV, yeah.
So we're going to start the investigation. And obviously, at this point, we have one suspect who we apprehended through the canine. And that is where we're going to start our case. There's another really interesting piece of evidence, though, that comes up here. Another officer doing a really good job that night. It's been raining, so everything's wet. As he's looking for one of these 2 suspects, he comes across this little piece of paper on the ground that's dry. And it just catches his eye because like everything around him is soaking wet.
But
and
there's
this
something
dry
that
piece
is,
of paper.
It's a recent piece of evidence.
Right. And it's a receipt. And he doesn't think a lot of it other than it just stands out. So he picks it, puts it in his pocket. He will later impound it. So we also have this receipt. We don't know if it's connected or not, but it's something. It's something
that happens to be out of place.
Right. As we start the crime scene investigation a little bit more, obviously we're interviewing Miko at the police department now. We're interviewing his wife. It does appear that this was planned by somebody he knows. They knew his name. They believe he had cash. They knew about his office. So even though he doesn't recognize them and immediately know it's this client or that
They
client,
know exactly who he
there's
is.
definitely some information that's making him think, okay, somehow I know these people. Now, this is where things start to get interesting. We interview the suspect that we apprehended that the canine found. He doesn't want to talk. He immediately invokes, send me to jail. I'm fine. So we book him into jail. Don't think much about it.
Okay.
A couple days later, we find out he's actually out on release from another armed robbery. But because he's only on release, he doesn't have a conviction for that armed robbery yet. It didn't immediately
it's
pop
not in
up
the
in the
system.
system. So when we start to find out about that, we contact the county attorney's office and we start discussing with the county attorney's office, hey, what's the odds that maybe we can work a deal with this kid if we can get him to talk? And we contact him and we come back and sure enough, he wants to talk because he's looking at a solid 20 years, maybe 30 years between the two armed robberies.
And how old is he?
He's like 18, turning 19. He's a pretty young kid. He's
Yeah.
got a lot of runway in front of him. So
Right.
going to prison for 20 or 30 years right out of the bat, there's kind of rough. This sobers him up very quickly to the situation, and he wants to talk. He explains he's an aspiring artist himself.
Oh,
Little up-and-coming rapper from the hood.
okay.
And he hangs out at this hip-hop shop on a regular basis,
Okay.
who Miko Wady might frequent on a regular basis as well. So he knows who Miko is because of the hip-hop shop. He sees his Ferrari, his Lamborghini.
And he sees all this money that he's
flashing
bringing
cash. He always claims that he's the producer for Fitty.
in. He sees the opportunity.
Sees the opportunity. So he makes
A tape.
his mixtape
Oh my gosh.
and he gives it to Miko one day when he sees him in the shop. Like, hey, check me out. I'm an artist as well. Like, you'll love my tape.
Okay.
The best of. We're going to call this kid Joe, by the way. So Joe's
Okay.
mixtape doesn't go over well with Miko. In fact, Miko just kind of disses the kid. It really pisses Joe off.
Okay.
Like, come on, buddy.
Give me a chance.
Yeah, I'm up and coming artist from the hood. Like, help me out. A couple weeks later, he's driving down the road, just minding his own business. Joe is. And Miko Wady passes him in his black Ford Excursion. And he immediately recognizes it because Miko's known for these real extravagant cars,
Okay.
which is why I showed the car in the beginning.
Which is why I've seen that ugly Dodge driving around Gilbert before.
Right. He immediately recognizes, oh, that's Miko. And Miko has this trailer with, like I said, 4 or 6 four-wheelers strapped down to the back of it. Joe decides to follow Miko to his house, unbeknownst to Miko. Miko has no idea that Joe's following. Once he figures out where Miko lives, he calls up a buddy of his who runs what we call a rip crew. And this buddy, who will also remain nameless, we're going to go by his street name, his AKA Doughboy.
Oh.
Doughboy
This
is
is what
legit.
his friends call him.
Yeah, Doughboy is legit. He is the leader of a very well-known gang in Phoenix. It's legitimate. It's not like he wants to grow up and be a gangster someday. He's living the lifestyle.
Okay.
He runs a rip crew, and what a rip crew is they target drug dealers who are bringing in loads of drugs or loads of cash. So through different intelligence sources, they'll find out, hey, somebody just brought in 500 pounds of weed, and they will go rip that weed that night. They'll break into the house, do a home invasion, tie everybody up, steal the weed, and take off.
So what they don't realize is that people with normal jobs don't just keep stacks of cash laying around like drug dealers do.
Right. However, Miko, who's always flashing cash, seems like an easy target.
Like he would have tons of money laying around.
Right. And Joe's a little bit jaded anyway because he got the
got
Heisman.
dissed.
Yeah. So Joe convinces Doughboy, hey, I have a hit we can do on this Miko Wady character.
Okay.
Doughboy's interested. Hey, let's drive out there. Let's check it out. So they drive out, and sure enough, there's the Excursion parked in front of the house. Still has the trailer and the four-wheelers on it. They do a little scout, and Doughboy decides this is a legit opportunity. Let's take advantage of it. So they start calling up the crew. They drive back to the West Phoenix. I think this is the part that I enjoy the most, is you have 6 hardcore gangsters that are
Okay.
going to come together as part of this rip crew. Where do you think they would meet?
Somebody's house in a garage?
No, you got to eat. You got to fuel yourself before you do this.
McDonald's?
Eatsa Pizza.
Oh.
I don't know if you remember Eatsa Pizza, but it's like a really cheesy Chuck E. Cheese. It's a pizza buffet, kind of.
Yeah, it's cheap pizza, cardboard dough.
100%. So they meet out on the west side at the Eatsa Pizza where they're planning this home invasion.
Okay.
And in my head, when I play back how this is all playing out and the way Joe's describing it and what we find later on, They eat their pizza. They have this plan. They get out to the parking lot. Doughboy is making the final preparations. They're going to take 2 cars. You 3 in this car. You 3 come over here. By the way, you're tying up hands. You're the gunman. You're going to break the window. You're going to do this. And then the first guy who has to tie up the hands is like, I forgot my zip ties. Hey, do you have zip ties? No, man, I don't. You're supposed to bring the zip ties. Well, I forgot the zip ties. And there's this conversation.
It's very unorganized.
Very unorganized. So Doughboy's like, stop. You go get the home invasion kit. The rest of us will drive out there. We'll meet up out there. So
The home invasion kit.
3 of these guys.
Is this at somebody's house?
Oh, no.
Is it already prepared somewhere?
No, you go to the local AutoZone. And you have to find an AutoZone that's open 24 hours a day because it's now almost midnight.
Okay.
So they go to the closest 24-hour AutoZone.
In Glendale.
In Glendale, which is interesting because of the receipt that the officer found.
Which already makes it suspicious that the receipt is from Glendale and it's in Gilbert.
Correct. And we may have some Glendale fans that listen to this later. And if you're truly from Glendale, you're going to agree with me. There's this square in West Phoenix in Glendale between the Avs and the streets. If something is happening there, it's bad. Period. Period.
Stepping into there is bad.
Yes. So just the fact that I look at the address here and I realize, hey, we're around 56th Avenue and Camelback. Bad shit happens there every night.
This receipt has cable ties. What's Fast Fit G?
Okay, so what we have is a poly clothesline. It's rope that you would use to actually make a clothesline to hang your clothes on.
Okay.
By the way, that comes in a 50-foot span. So it's 50 feet of rope.
Okay.
2 bags of cable ties, which are zip ties. So they're buying 2 bags of zip ties. Fast Fit G is gloves. They're buying mechanic gloves.
Okay, I see where they're headed here.
Now, apparently, someone didn't get enough to eat at the buffet because they also buy a Snickers.
This was Doughboy.
And a bag of Garditos.
Doughboy's like, hey, I still need snacks.
And don't forget the fucking Garditos this time. This is what we call a home invasion kit. Clothesline, cable ties, gloves, Snickers, and a bag of Garditos. And off they go.
Okay, so how much did they pay for all this?
It was like $28. This is a pretty good investment. You got to spend money to make money.
Well, at least they paid.
They did pay. They paid in cash. Now, I have a picture here, too. This is one of the kids who actually bought this stuff.
He looks really young.
That's a good observation. He is 15 years old.
Oh, my gosh.
Been in the game now for almost 30 years myself. This is probably one of the most dangerous individuals I ever came across. He's really trying to make a name for himself in this gang, and this is a violent street gang.
Okay.
He's already good for at least 2 homicides when this picture's taken.
Oh my gosh.
I suspect he's probably good for a lot more by now. He was the kid who wanted the respect of all these hardcore gangbangers, and he was willing to do anything for that. He packed a gun with him everywhere he went, and he would just start shooting people just because.
He had nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose. He had no value in life, and he didn't value anybody's life. So,
nor himself.
Super dangerous kid, even though he looks young and you would never see it coming, which is part of the reason he's so dangerous. This kid's going to be a little bit of a mystery, and we'll come back to him. But now the case is starting to come together. We're seeing this planning of the Eats a Pizza meeting. Now they're getting the cable ties. The next thing that's kind of funny is they get lost. They're all from the west side. They're not used to coming out to the east side. And they get lost, which generates phone calls back and forth of,
where are we?
Where am I
are
going? Yeah, in 2005, we're talking flip phones for the most part.
Yeah, they didn't have Google Maps yet.
Yeah, you're not navigating to these areas.
Okay.
Eventually, they all meet up just outside of Miko's house. They stop at a little park down the street, give the final plans. It was interesting in talking with both Joe initially and then some of the other suspects as we contacted them later on. They planned this like a full operation. They knew whose role was who was going to break the window, who was on lookout when they got in the house, how to get to the bedroom. And what's interesting is when I asked them, well, how did you know the layout of the house? Mm-hmm. It was a new home. They went to the builder's website and actually were looking at the floor plans on the builder's website.
Oh my gosh.
And I've had this come up on a couple of cases. I don't think people realize most houses are either on Zillow or Redfin, Realtor.com. If you have a home that was built as part of these big housing development.
All the floor plans are there.
All the floor plans are there. People probably don't realize you can go to Zillow, you can go to Redfin Realtor, and you can remove those photos.
Right. Well,
Google
they're all linked to the MLS, which is the primary realtor website that they put the photos on in the first place and where they list the house.
Correct. And some things that people don't think about when they're buying or selling a house, have your realtor in your contract that you're entering with the realtor to represent you on that deal, have them include that part of their duty is to remove the photos from the internet once the sale is complete.
Well, because if you're the buyer, it should be the seller's agent to remove them. It should be their duty to remove them. Well,
it depends. Once it's filed, it's now the buyer's. So if you've already purchased the house and now you own the house, you have to go to like Zillow, and Zillow has a way you can claim ownership of that house. And then once they verify you're the owner, you can remove the photos.
So you, as the buyer, it's already gone through, you can't call the seller's broker.
Not after the fact. It has to be part of the deal,
the contract,
to get the seller to do it.
Interesting. This is
But
good.
if people just Google, how do I remove photos from Zillow or Redfin, it'll come up. There's pretty easy directions to follow. But it's just something to think about. Like, I don't like the thought of somebody looking at my house for the purposes of committing a home invasion.
Or other reasons, but okay.
Joe puts this case together for us pretty well. He explains all of the players, who's who. We end up writing a handful of search warrants. One interesting caveat here, we get 2 of them right off the bat. 2 of them were really easy to find. Doughboy, when we hit his house, he was also known for raising pit bulls, like fighting pit bulls, like street fighting pit bulls, almost like cockfighting, but pit bull fighting.
Yeah, yeah.
So we had this intel
It's
that
terrible.
When you go to his house, be very, very careful. He's got these pit bulls that allegedly will just eat your face off.
Okay.
And these are SWAT warrants. So at the time, I'm a detective, but I'm also on our SWAT team. So as we go to serve this warrant on Doughboy's house, as we go around in the backyard, sure enough, there is this pit bull who seems really mean. Big pit bull. He's on a chain, but he's chained to like the middle of the yard.
He's just got a stake in the ground with a chain on it.
Right. But where we need to be in our position, he can get to us. And a lot of times within the SWAT world, if you throw a flashbang to a dog, the dog will take off.
Explain to people what a flashbang is.
Think of a grenade that doesn't actually explode with shrapnel. You hear the concussion, the noise, the light, but there's no actual fragmentation of anything that's going to hurt you.
Okay.
And a lot of times animals are deathly afraid of these.
Like fireworks.
Yeah, think of it as a loud really, really loud firecracker. So as we come around the back, we see this dog. Somebody's already tasked, hey, you flashbang the dog, it'll all be good. Well, this poor dog gets scared and takes off running and tries to jump the fence.
Oh.
But he hits the end of his chain about halfway through his jump as he's clearing the fence.
And nobody thought about this happening.
And he's hanging himself now because the chain is up over the fence.
And he's dangling from the fence line.
So he's sitting there choking himself out, basically. And one of the SWAT officers that is with us is like a total animal lover.
Good.
Goes over and kind of holds his head a little bit and is able to get the collar off and lets this dog go. And we're all thinking, that dog is going to eat you as soon as you... What are you doing, dummy? As soon as the dog got off, he was the biggest playful thing you've ever seen. He's licking, jumping around, just wanting to play. We're all playing with the dog before the whole thing's over. So the dog wasn't that mean. Doughboy's gone. We do not find Doughboy, but we do recover a gun, which is important because he can't possess guns. He's got a couple felony convictions. As we continue this, we're going to start looking for the kid you saw in the picture that bought the home invasion kit.
Okay.
And we are having a hard time tracking him down because his name is very common in the Phoenix area.
What is that?
Juan Jose Garcia.
Oh.
Legitimately.
There's probably a handful of those.
That is his name, Juan Garcia.
Throughout the Southwest.
Yeah, we ran a quick search. There's like 12,622 of them or something like that. So we're trying to find Juan Jose Garcia, who is 15 turning 16, so he's really not in the system. The only thing we truly have to identify him is we have figured out his phone. So we know what phone he's using. And we start this giant SWAT operation to track down Juan Jose Garcia by his phone. And I'm going to make fun of cops here.
Good.
Cops will avoid everything to prevent themselves from having to do a little bit of paperwork. We are hunting down a violent fugitive. We're going to try to get him in his car because that's typically the safest way to do it. Okay. And we're going to do what's called a street jump. And on a street jump, you pin a car in. So maybe we figure out who he is. We're all in unmarked cars, so he doesn't know who we are. Comes up to a stop sign in an intersection. What he doesn't realize is he's already surrounded by police officers.
There's really nowhere for him to go.
There's nowhere to go. And when the signal is given, We're going to execute this operation right now. Everybody pinches that car in. When I say pinch the car in, you make contact. Your car is pushing into his car. Mm-hmm. But you scratch cars, you dent cars.
Yeah, it's part of the fun.
That requires paperwork. And I will tell you, more times than not, I've worked with cops who refuse to fill out that paperwork. And at the last second, they refuse to actually hit that car. They'll leave a foot. They'll leave 2 feet. And people have seen this on the news with the helicopter where they finally
That's
looks like
where people get away.
Yeah, they pin this car in, and then pretty soon he starts moving around and he squirts out and he's gone.
Right.
That happened in this case. One of our commanders, it was actually our SWAT commander, just got a new Tahoe. He didn't want to hurt that Tahoe
Because it wasn't just a take-home car. It was the family car, probably.
Probably.
He's got the car seat back there.
Right.
His wife's shopping Sunday trip.
100%. So he leaves enough of this gap that Juan pulls up over the sidewalk around the other car, takes off, the pursuit's on.
Oh, dear.
We're going to chase this kid around Phoenix for the better part of 2 hours. We have an air unit, so the helicopter's following him.
So Phoenix is with you guys, Phoenix PD.
Yeah, it's a big operation. We have a lot of different agencies with us before we're done.
So,
DPS,
because I'm assuming Doughboy's house was also in Phoenix.
Yes.
So Phoenix's air unit was with you. Was their SWAT team with you as well?
We had a handful of their SWAT team guys. We had some of the DPS, the state guys with us. We had everybody because this guy's wanted for a couple other murders. He's good to go for several.
So there's a lot of
crimes.
agencies looking for him.
A lot of agencies, and we screw up the street jump, and it's embarrassing because it's just dent your damn car. It's okay. Juan doesn't know we're tracking his phone. So every time he gets away from us, everybody backs off. We wait for him to stop. Once he kind of stagnates again, we know where the phone is, and we just put units back to where he's at, and we start over again. After 3 times, he escapes our little perimeter every time. He's a wiry one. So
he just maybe thinks that the air unit is tracking him.
Yeah, and we're running through, and I had a buddy of mine with me that night. I'm driving. He's in the passenger seat. And we have all of our SWAT gear in the back of this car, and we're following the helicopter. Robbie Targos was his name, and Robbie was actually killed a year later. So this was just a year before his death. And we actually had a blast that night because as we're trying to follow this helicopter, we're having to stop at some stop signs. We're running other stop signs. We're trying to catch up to everybody, but it's just chaos in the car. And all of the stuff we had in our back seat had come up into the front seat. We had stuff rolling around the floors. It was just a complete shit show of us trying to catch Juan Jose. We finally get him isolated into this apartment complex. The air unit has got visual of him again. He's running through the parking lot. And we had this canine. The canine's name, not his official name, but what we all called him was Psycho. Mm-hmm. It was a Belgian Malinois.
Okay.
And if people are not familiar with a Belgian Malinois, they're insane. They are psychotic.
Right. The military uses them a lot in their military operations for bomb detection.
And where people think that maybe these dogs are being abused, this is the best day of this dog's life. They love this.
They love to work.
Yes, it is a game.
They remind me a bit of you, unless they're really heavily challenged with a challenging job. They're just not happy.
I remind you of an aggressive dog. Our canine handler.
Didn't mean it like that.
Sure. Our canine handler that's managing this dog is really, really good. He's a very well-known, very well-respected handler, and he actually went to Belgium and handpicked this dog. Brought him back. He has trained this dog so well. What a lot of people don't realize is when a canine bites you, they don't just run up and try to bite you. The really good canines will run full force and then they launch into the air, kind of like a little missile. So when they bite you, they have all of this force of their forward movement that pulls you down. And they'll weigh 80 to 100 pounds.
Right. They're pretty heavy.
Yeah. So I don't care how big and how strong you are. When they latch onto you, they have all that momentum. It'll knock you down to the ground. Well, this canine had trained his dog so well to do this that the dog actually broke his canine teeth, the big teeth in the front.
Oh my gosh.
Completely broke them off.
How old was the dog?
Like maybe 3 or 4, so right in the prime of his career. Uh-huh. So they took him to the doggy dentist.
Okay.
The doggy dentist put titanium teeth in.
Oh my gosh.
This dog actually had like his big canine teeth were titanium. When he growled, it looked like he was wearing a grill.
A dog named Psycho with titanium teeth.
I'm not making this up. This is the most insane dog ever. Well, our handler sees Juan Jose running through and is like, I'm letting the dog go, which we would pay attention to because all of the SWAT cops are now running as fast as Juan Jose.
Because you've probably all been bit by this dog at some point.
This dog has bit more cops than he has suspects. He's insane. And he hit Juan at a full run. And they went like ass end over end 3 or 4 times, full cart rails through that parking lot. And we finally got one. I think it broke his shoulder or something.
It broke Juan's
dislocated
shoulder?
his clavicle. It got a hold of his shoulder.
Good boy.
Good boy. Good boy.
Oh, here's some treats.
So
Love
now
you
we
so
have
much.
3 of them.
Okay.
We have Joe, which was the 4th. We're missing 1 suspect.
And do you know his name at this point at all?
Doughboy.
Oh, we're still
I know his
missing.
name, but I'm going to...
But that's what I'm saying. We don't know. We're not going to reveal his name at this point.
And I was pretty good at tracking people down. At this point in my career, I knew all of the little tricks to find people. And we kind of have this saying that there's certain people in somebody's life, and I'm going to preface this a little bit. Most violent fugitives that I've tracked in my career are males, period. Most of them live very much a gangster style of life. So when I'm explaining the next few things, this is referring to just the sheer numbers. Mostly males living kind of a gangster wannabe life. There are 3 people that if you can figure out how to get into one of these 3 people, you will find your fugitive every single time. One is a girlfriend. If they've got a girlfriend, start tracking the girlfriend. Sooner or later, the girlfriend will lead back. If they've ever pissed somebody off who's willing to kind of rat them out a little bit, you've got to find that source, that confidential source of information who's going to keep you in tuned.
Right.
The next one is if they've ever pissed a woman off. There is nothing in this world that will screw you faster than a scorned woman.
Right.
So as officers, we would look for these things. Is there a girlfriend? Is there a pissed off ex-girlfriend? Do we have somebody who's maybe willing to drop a little bit of information?
And maybe with his phone. Snitches, bitches, and phones. That's how they all get caught.
100%.
So this is a funny story. We went to a lot of conferences during our time in our career at ZedX when we owned that business. And we were in Las Vegas at a conference talking with an undercover officer who became a really good friend of ours over time with Orange County Sheriff's Office in California. And we were talking a lot about different types of investigations. And he comes out and says after a few beers, snitches, bitches, and phones, man. That's how they all get caught. I looked at Cy and said, we need to put that on a t-shirt, which we did ultimately. And we had a little emblem that went with it. It was amazing. And we had this cult following who all wanted t-shirts. And we had this snitches, bitches, and phones embedded in the tag of the shirt. So it wasn't actually on the shirt. So people could wear it out and about and nobody would really know what it meant. But only if you had been through one of our classes,
Yeah, it was kind
you
of
would know
Fight
what this
Club.
meant. It was very Fight Club.
First rule of Fight Clubs, you don't talk about Fight Club. So if you attended one of our classes, at the very end of the class, we would explain this and we would explain the shirt.
And
we
where you
called
could get one.
We called it SBP.
Yes, and we had it on our website, not the words, but we did have SBP on our website so that people could go to the website and buy a shirt.
Buy these shirts.
Want to tell them what happened in court?
Yeah, I thought it was a terrible idea from the get-go. When you told me you were going to put this on a t-shirt, I was like, the hell you are. I can't. You're kind of behind the scenes. You're just the mind behind the scenes making everything in the business work. I was more of the face of the business who had to go out in the public and actually interact with people a lot of times in court. So I was totally against SBP going public from the beginning.
People loved it, though.
They did love it. And I was in Boston in court. 3 defendants, I think it was a drive-by. They had shot somebody. I think the person lived, but we're in trial for an attempted homicide, 3 suspects, 3 defense attorneys. We've been trying to get into Massachusetts. Massachusetts is a really hard state because of their laws. They are very, very staunch supporters of every aspect of a constitution.
We had been trying to get Massachusetts State Police to purchase.
But in general, just we wanted cases in Massachusetts to show our reliability.
Right.
And this was a big deal because we finally had a case that we were going to trial. And it's not every day you get 3 defense attorneys in the same trial. So I'm super prepared for anything I think they can throw at me. The first defense attorney does cross-examination. Didn't really ask me much. It was really simple. And I'm like, okay, that was pretty easy. Second one, pretty much the same thing. And now I'm getting a little bit of a big head because what's the third one? I'm good to go. And the third defense attorney starts his cross-examination with me of, Mr. Ray, do you maintain a website? Which immediately bells and whistles are going off because where's he going?
Right.
So yes, I own a website. And on that website, you sell apparel. To which I thought, oh shit,
Yes.
I know where he's going.
Yes.
Yes, sir. And on that website with the apparel, you sell shirts, do you not? Yes. And those shirts on the inside of them have the letters SBP. Do they not?
Yes.
Before I could say yes, he says, actually, it's Snitches, Bitches, and Phones. Is it not, Mr. Ray? And here I am trying to be professional, getting into this new market with an entire jury in front of me. And I have to explain, my damn wife decided she wants to put this.
I remember the phone call as you were leaving the court saying, take down the webpage immediately. And I was thinking, no, we can't. It's
I had to explain Snitches, Bitches, and Phones to the jury. The best part of that is the defendants, the 3 defendants, they're all kind of gangsters. They're busting up because they're like,
because they know.
That's how we got caught.
It's just the truth.
Yes.
It's the truth of the
matter. And we got a little carried away because in the tag, we had Snitches, Bitches, and Phones. And then at the bottom, we put all day because there's a barbecue place here. And if you order any of their food, like if you order the brisket, the lady just yells, brisket all day.
Yeah.
Pulled pork all. And we thought it was kind of funny.
It was just a fun little tagline.
So then the defense asked me, well, what does it say underneath Snitches, Bitches, and Phones? And I'm trying to save a little bit of grace with the jury. And I'm like, 100% cotton? It's like, no, under that. Oh,
what was the jury's reaction to this? Do you remember?
They're laughing. Everybody in the court. I think even the judge smirked a little bit. I felt like an idiot. I could feel myself turning red. But at the end of the day, I think people get it. You're dealing with a different type of person here. To some people, that might be really offensive. But to the average fugitive, they would tell you, oh, no.
It's true.
It's the fastest
That's why we use burner phones.
Yes, 100%. So that's the legend of SBP. But then I figured I've got to have a backup story here. If I'm never going to go through this on the stand.
Right.
So then we got involved with bear poaching, and SBP became Stop Bear Poaching.
Right. So we all sat down as a group with all of our employees, and we all sat and tried to come up with different things that SBP could stand for. How could we rearrange our acronym? So it became Stop Bear Poaching. And we had a really cool picture of a big grizzly bear catching trout on our website.
Yeah.
That was fun.
If you own an SBP shirt, they're probably worth some money these days.
I would hope so.
There's not maybe a couple hundred of them out there now.
Well, we even had lapel pins and tie pins.
It was a whole thing.
It was fun.
So with this case, we're going to use that tactic. And a couple of these pieces, we're trying to get to people's phones to figure out, where is Doughboy? We've been tracking him for a year. He's on a couple of the top 10 lists around the country, too. He's well known as far as a fugitive. People are looking for him, cannot find him. We get a tip that his current girlfriend is pregnant with his baby. So we're trying to figure out where she's going to the OBGYN, how far along is she? If we start tracking her.
She's a scorned lover.
Yes. No. Well, the scorned lover gave us the current lover who is now pregnant.
Right.
We interviewed her once, and she pretty much told us to just go screw ourselves. The current one who's pregnant. She wanted nothing to do with us. She's going to fight for Doughboy to the very end. She was using burner phones every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, she'd get a new phone, and so would he. So trying to track the phones, it just wasn't working that well. Ultimately, I won't explain exactly how we figured it out, but we figured out her OBGYN. And if we could put her in a couple of places, we could figure out her current phone, which maybe gives us Doughboy's phone. It's a long, complicated technical process. But at the end of the day, we've got to identify her at the OBGYN. It's the only known place we know that she would be.
Right.
So just to screw with one of my detectives, I call one of my female detectives up and I'm like, hey, we have this case that just came in where an OBGYN, when he's doing pap smears, he's getting a little too touchy-feely.
Okay.
You're pretty much being sexually assaulted instead of getting a pap. So we need to send in an undercover. Would you mind? And with zero hesitation, she's like, send me in. I'm good for this.
Good, yeah. Just take one for the team.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, weirdo. Here's what we really need is, can you sit in the lobby and identify this person when she comes in for her appointment? It's going to be next Thursday. We need to track, when she's leaving the building, let us know because we need to track her.
Okay.
So sure enough, it goes off without any issues at all. We find her, we track her back to her house, and we start tracking her current phone. We get to Doughboy's phone. We think he is at the house. And here is this hardcore gangster, right? Home invasion, running this rip crew. He's been on the run for a year. ATF, the marshals, everybody's looking for him. He's just a badass.
Okay.
We go driving by the house about a week later just to do a little pass really quick. And to our surprise, there's Doughboy in the front yard wearing a pair of basketball shorts, this oversized, like wife beater tank top, watering his flowers.
Or his wife's flowers.
His wife's flowers.
Or girlfriend. He's
Yeah,
not
I
even
guess
his
it doesn't
wife.
matter how
It's
hardcore
girlfriend.
you are if you're told to go water the flowers.
Yeah, you
and
go
we
do
end
it.
up arresting Doughboy in the front yard while he was watering the flowers of all
Oh
things.
my gosh.
And
What,
this is-
he didn't run? He didn't put up a fight?
No, he was totally cool. And this is what I want to get into this a little bit because I think it might be interesting to some of our viewers. This guy's hardcore. He's hardcore. His family has history, and I don't want to get into all the history, but his family is very well known in the prison system as running part of the prison system, not from the good side, from the suspect side.
Right.
He's connected.
They're very influential amongst their peers.
Yes, and running a very, very well-documented Hispanic gang that dominates the prisons. This kid's legit, nothing but respectful the entire time we were with him. When we are booking him, he's funny. He's actually really funny. As cops are coming through the booking center, he's making fun of cops like a stand-up comedian. He's like just
Right.
doing a little side act. He made fun of my mom for the better part of an hour, and it was
How
funny.
so?
I'm not going to repeat it. My mom listens to this.
Just tell me.
Just mom jokes the entire time, like different things.
She
And
made him breakfast.
I think he started with asking me if the next time I'm at my mom's house, could I get his Nikes because he left them there last time he was there. And I'm like, wait, what?
So
He's like,
he's
hey, when
just
you see
this-
your mom again, can you pick up my Nikes?
So this is just friendly banter.
Yeah,
that-
just friendly banter. But he was very respectful.
Okay.
I don't say we were friends, but we had a professional respect, I
But
guess.
he
for
would have
each
been
other.
fun to have at a party.
Yeah, I would totally hang out with this kid. He's out of prison now, so I think he got wrapped up in some other federal case recently, but he's now out.
Okay.
But it was very interesting where there is still kind of this mutual respect sometimes between law enforcement and the criminals. If you play the game right and you're
Right.
respectful to each other, you can
Right.
coexist.
Yeah.
It was really interesting to have that experience. All of our suspects are going to be convicted. They get different sentencing ranges from about 7 to 20 years roughly. But our story doesn't end there.
Okay.
Now we're going to get into karma.
Okay.
About a year later, I'm contacted by the FBI, and they want to come out to the police department and sit down and talk about the Miko Wady case. They're very interested in what was stolen, any pictures we had of the house, things that Miko owned. They're just really interested in Miko Wady. So yeah, come on out. We sat down and talk. This is the beginning of an investigation that's going to last about 3 years. I'd gotten involved very slightly on the
The
outskirts.
FBI's investigation lasts 3
It's
years.
a federal investigation. It's going to last 3 years. I'm providing little tidbits here and there.
And the investigation is on Miko?
The investigation's on Miko. Miko, I know this is going to shock you a little bit, is not a concert promoter.
What
in
is he?
any capacity. He's a scam artist. So Miko is actually running this Ponzi scheme where he will find a very popular artist's tour calendar. So let's go with Keith Urban. So he would see Keith Urban's on tour for the next 12 months. He would pick 4 or 5 of the concerts in California, Arizona, and New Mexico. And he would forge the documents, and he would act like he was the promoter for Keith Urban's tour as
my
it comes through those
gosh.
states. And he would go out and get investors to invest. And he had a great deal. It's essentially a 4% return every month, and it's usually a 90-day turnaround. So for example, I have $1 million I'm going to give Miko for this concert. When I loan him the money, he's paying me $40,000 a month for that, the interest, if you will, for 3 months. And at the end of the 3 months, he pays me my money back. So I'm taking $120,000
Right.
in 3 months. It's a
That's
pretty
a
good
great
deal.
return.
Pretty good deal. And what he was doing is, it's just a Ponzi scheme. He's not representing Keith Urban. He's not doing anything for the concerts. He's taking that $1 million. He's paying the guy the $40,000 out of his own $1 million. And then by the time the 90-day window rolls around, he's got another investor hooked and a little bit more money this time. And he's paying the first investor back with the second
All the while
investors.
buying himself Ferraris and Porsches.
Taking a couple
and-
$100,000 off the top every time he does this deal. In about a 4-year period, he did this to the tune of $50 million.
Oh my gosh.
He was taking people left and right.
So how did they finally figure out what he was doing?
Well, it got so prolific in what he was doing, an investment firm out of Mesa, Arizona actually got involved with him. And they're seeing dollar signs, so they're like, hey, Miko, you shouldn't have to do all of this. Let us bring investors to you, which for Miko is grand slam.
Payday.
So now he had this recognizable, reputable investment firm who was bringing $1 million customers to Miko being like, yeah, invest. What was really funny is Miko would use part of that money to buy really, really nice VIP backstage access passes. He's buying them just like any other schmo off the street would. Well, then he's taking the investor backstage, giving them a tour of the concert venue.
Showing
like
them what their
place.
investment dollars are doing.
Yes, and they're not even questioning because they're like, well, no, he took us backstage. We met people.
And he's never stopped backstage by any other concert producers, anything like that?
No, he's got the pass. He's just like anybody else going backstage. And a lot of them were meet and greets, so the people are meeting
The artist.
the actual artist, and it looks legitimate.
Oh my gosh.
He's going to run this for about 4 years. He starts to miss payments because that's the problem with the Ponzi scheme. At some point, you run out of the ability to pay people. So he started missing payments. This investment firm actually hired a former FBI guy to start digging into it and realize, oh shit,
Right.
he doesn't represent anybody. He and his wife were forging all of the documents. They would get cashier's checks out of their accounts to basically pay for a venue. But then the next day they would just redeposit the same cashier check back into their account and be like, oh, they changed their mind, we're not doing it anymore. But he would make copies of it. So he'd give you all the paperwork. Contracts with these artists. He never represented Fiddy, by the way, even though he knew how to say his name.
Keith. Or Dave.
Yeah, not even Dave.
Oh my gosh.
Pretty interesting. He was killing it, though. He was making an incredible amount of money.
And his wife was involved.
His wife was involved in it. She was actually named in the lawsuit. There's also a big civil lawsuit. He was ultimately ordered to pay $30 million in restitution that was still owed to the investors.
He doesn't even have that money to pay back to investors.
No. He got 9 years in prison. He actually got a longer prison sentence than some of the people who did the home invasion.
Oh my gosh.
And, he got 250 hours of community service, so.
So there are no victims in this case, maybe except the baby.
The baby would be a victim.
Well, and maybe the kid who wanted his cassette listened to, but he's kind of a victim, but not really.
Yeah, he had to do a little prison stint too. It didn't wash away all of his charges. He still went to prison as well. What's interesting is in putting this together for this episode, I just ran to see where everybody was at now. Miko got out of prison, I think in 2018. All of them except for one is out of prison now. But I found a lot of websites, people going after Miko to this day because they're investors that never got their money back. And just wishing the absolute worst in the world on people. And I was wondering,
if any of those investors hear this episode, there's karma.
Yeah, they may not have known that when Miko was just getting his start on defrauding people, he actually got jacked in a home invasion. So maybe it was deserved. But yeah, karma has an interesting way of
finding
coming back into our lives.
That was a fun episode.
Yeah, a little bit more lighthearted.
Yeah.
Flashin' cash. Next week
is a tougher episode. It's an interesting episode, but it's another pedophilia case that we're going to present to you. The primary suspect is called Holcomb Gunn, and we hope you join us and listen in.
Stay safe.